Every year around this time of year, I get a lot of questions about people wondering how do they move their GMAT verbal score fast? It's a great question. Let me share with you how I would tackle this problem. Step number one is you've got to make sure you've got solid foundations for each of the three verbal question types. Right now, that's sentence correction, critical reasoning, and reading comprehension. You can find those foundations in printed materials, or you can do some web searching and find a lot of valuable free content about how to tackle those things efficiently. If you need a little bit more help, reach out to us and we're happy to recommend a few paid programs for you if you have a budget that you can invest here. Once you have those foundations, you want to make sure that you've gone through at least 30, if not 50, of each of those three problem types in the official guide for GMAT review. So that would be 30 sentence correction at least, 30 reading comp questions, and 30 critical reasoning to make sure that you're able to apply the fundamentals that you've learned in your course, in your books, or in your self-study. Now, the key when you're tackling official guide verbal questions is after you finish the problems, you need to be able to write down why each right answer is right and why each wrong answer is wrong. Simply completing 30 to 50 practice questions is not enough. That's very unlikely to move your score. You need to have a very robust review process so that you're getting meaningful knowledge and meaningful takeaways from each question that you complete. Once you have those initial 30 to 50 questions completed and reviewed, and you're confident that you're able to execute the strategies that you learned in a reasonable amount of time, let's call that 3 minutes or less, then it's time to take a practice exam and measure your progress. It's really important to use the MBA.com practice exams when you're testing for verbal specifically because it's very difficult for third-party providers to replicate those real official GMAT verbal questions. Once you've taken your practice tests, you're going to want to analyze the results and pick 3 of the top areas that you feel that if you improved, they would have the biggest impact on your overall score. That might be broad things like timing, or it might be things like data sufficiency in the math section. For you, if you're watching this and you're interested in verbal, it's probably going to be one or all of those 3 verbal types. Pick only the top 3 and focus all your energy on those for 1 to 3 weeks before your next practice exam. What you're going to want to do is go back to the official guide and either redo the problems if they're math problems or redo the review process if they're verbal problems, because just redoing verbal problems is not going to be that helpful. You'll remember all the answers, but redoing the review process, forcing yourself to re-explain why the right answers are right and why the wrong answers are wrong, super duper powerful. Then you're just going to repeat that process on 2 more practice exams. Make sure you give yourself at least a week between exams. I would say about 20 hours of study at least should be the minimum you should aim for between practice tests. So for a lot of you, that's going to be 2 or 3 weeks between exams. But if you're studying full time, that might just be a few days of 7 hours a day of studying. The most important thing is you've got to make sure that you've made meaningful progress in your skills with the official guide before retesting. So whatever your top 3 focus areas are that you chose, whether that be critical reasoning, reading comp, or sentence correction, you need to have done and reviewed deeply enough questions to know for sure something terrible would have to happen for my score not to move on the next practice test. So the effort we're going for is not what's the minimum effort to get the result, but what kind of effort would I have to put in to make failure impossible? That's what I would do. If you have questions about your specific situation or you're unsure how to apply the advice I just gave, shoot us a DM anytime and we'll be happy to help.